In autumn 1883, the French Impressionist artist Pierre-Auguste Renoir spent just over a month on the island of Guernsey. He produced 15 paintings during his stay, most of them depicting views of Moulin Huet. The bay had long been a popular location for artists due to its particular light and the way it plays on the rocks. We don't know for certain why Renoir came to Guernsey, but he'd spent time on the Normandy coast and was known to admire Victor Hugo, who had lived in exile on Guernsey for 15 years. Renoir made the trip to the island accompanied by friends, including Paul Lot and his wife-to-be, Aileen Charagot. Renoir's arrival in Guernsey came at a turning point in his career. He was already a renowned portrait artist, taking commissions from the bourgeois society that he was keen to socialize with. But he was in two minds about the direction he should take. He admired the landscape work and the commercial achievements of his friend Monet, and wanted to find a way to emulate his success with his own paintings. Renoir's experiences in Guernsey sparked an interest in painting nudes within the landscape. He was amused to find many of the islanders casually bathing on the beach and rocks without any clothes. A number of the paintings he produced in Guernsey feature naked bathers on the beach, set against the beautiful natural coastal scenes. He went on to develop this theme successfully in the years following, integrating elements of portraiture into his landscapes. Let's take a trip through the beautiful Moulin Huet Valley to see what inspired Renoir and the works that he produced.
So we're just in front of Baileymulatto à travers des arbres by Renoir. It is an incredible painting because it is maybe the first one that Renoir imagined when he came to Guernsey, just to think about something very spectacular for a wider audience. He came from Normandy, from Dieppe, just some months before, and he had in mind all the coast of Normandy, of Dieppe, Le Havre, Deauville. And he knew perfectly the coast, so when he went to Guernsey it was like a new discovery for him to find something new, what he can imagine for a new audience, a new business. And we have to imagine Renoir going there on this small path with all this material on the back. Maybe he was not alone, he was with Aileen Charagot, his mistress, and Paul Lot, a journalist. So three of them came there with maybe a carriage. And then they found this spectacular view with the rocks and the sea. It was in September, October '83. So Renoir maybe was interested with the contrast between the light and the shadows from the trees, and also the light sparkling on the rocks. Renoir was very keen of Renaissance painting, so he had in mind also all the Renaissance painting he saw in the Louvre. And for instance, one of the tricks he had to make perspective was to use what Leonardo had made, to use green, brown and blue. And this is what we are seeing in front of this painting. There's a focus on the view with the sea and the rocks, but the first foreground is green and then brown and the blue of the sea. So our eyes is thrilled by the way that Renoir had in mind with all the possibilities of painting, because in his mind there's a comparison with photograph. And Renoir was one of the first to exhibit at the Impressionist exhibition in 1874, and it took place in Nadar studio, who was a photograph. And also the painting at the time was in comparison with photograph. So it's like a photograph in painting, and Impressionists, they wanted to make something new that photograph couldn't do. It was to captivate, to capture the light and the movement of the light. A photograph cannot do that. It's only a moment, and in a Renoir painting you can see all the light moving. What is very striking there is that the shadow of the trees, we are a little in a jail in the painting. We are trapped in this painting, and it's difficult for us to have another idea of what the landscape could be on the right or on the left. So I think that Renoir was very struck by what he saw. He was impressed when he arrived after all this walk from Saint-Pierre. Maybe there was a carriage, but even if there was a carriage, I think he stopped and said, wow. Top right. And there are three other studies on the right, like Brouillard Guernsey is an incredible painting by Renoir as well. It is a view that Renoir tried to conceive as a realistic view, but indeed I will be very surprised if it was what Renoir really saw, because it's different from the first painting we saw together. I mean, this cottage on the left, it's impossible to see it in the position we are now, because you have to be on your knees to have the cottage so big on the left, and to have the sea on the right so small. So I guess Renoir tried to make something very spectacular with the three grounds, the green, the brown and the blue, like in the Renaissance painting, to make a perspective. And this perspective is wider on the left than on the right. There's a big contrast between the house and the sea, and the light is focused on the second foreground. It is interesting to see that the brouillard, so the foggy landscape, is disappearing with the light of the sun on the rocks and the hills of the second plans. I mean that I think that it has been made maybe early in the morning or late in the day, and you can see the cottage with a small chimney and some smoke. It may be, maybe it's be cold, so I would think it's early in the morning. Renoir was a hard worker. He used to wake up very early in the morning and to work late. And this is also a tribute to another famous painting by Claude Monet, the fisherman hunt in Varengeville. Varengeville is a little city near Dieppe, and Claude Monet exhibited a painting in Durand-Ruel's gallery some months before Renoir went to Guernsey. And when Renoir went to Guernsey, he had in his mind all this painting by Claude Monet, with the idea that if Monet was able to sell it to Durand-Ruel, maybe Renoir himself could be able to sell it to Durand-Ruel. So there's kind of pun between the two artists. They were very close to each other. One was more successful than the previous one. Renoir was just at the beginning of the success. In 83, Monet is quite famous indeed. Enfant au bord de la mer, Guernsey is a strange painting by Renoir. Indeed, it's very sketchy. We are just in front of the sea, on the beach. On the left, there is some buses and kids playing with stones. And on the right, there is a young lady, maybe an older sister with two older children, and two guys on the right. It's very strange indeed because it looks unfinished, and we can think that Renoir was inspired by what he saw directly on the beach. He was very amused to see that there was a lot of bathers who were absolutely naked on the beach. It would have been impossible in France at that time, but in Guernsey it was let's say very common, and that Presentism was not so developed at the time, and Renoir was amused with that. He said, wow, these Guernsey people, they are very free, it's funny to see that. So he wrote a letter to his dealer, Renoir Walk, saying, I will find something very new, very amusing for the people, with all the naked people bathing on the sea. Maybe I will do something new. And this sketchy painting is a composition that Renoir made after coming back to Paris, because the landscape was made, of course, in Guernsey, but the people on the right, they seem to have been modeled, to have posed in his studio in Paris. They are too well composed. They are too strict, too straight as well. The little children with the mother, the elder sister, they look very bored indeed on the sea, and it will be impossible that they will not move. So I think Renoir made this painting coming back to Paris after some studies he made, and on the top right it's not finished, on the left bottom it's not finished. So he finished it coming back to Paris, and then when he went back to Paris he finished the models on the right and signed it on the bottom right, saying it's a composition I made between Guernsey and Paris. And it's interesting because after his stay in Guernsey, Renoir was very keen on nude models and new bathers. This is what we can see in the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, with all this new painting, because he was very interested by the bathers he saw and the landscapes of Guernsey. And this sketchy painting is very lively for him. I mean, he made a lot of drawings, but he came back with all the idea of the light. And what is very striking is the movement of the sea. You have the green, the blue, and three models in red, like bathers, like a fire on the landscape. And I think our eye is focused on these three bathers on the left, meaning that Renoir was thinking about a new type of painting with nude bathers. So it was really an important step in his own style. He was going to change all his style to come to a new way of painting with nude bathers. Vue de Guernsey is a typical Renoir painting of this period. It's a very large view of Guernsey. It could be anywhere in the coast. It could be Brittany, it could be Normandy, it could be Baileymulatto, it could be a seaside coast. What is interesting is that Renoir is dealing with the contrast between the ground and the clouds. Everything is very windy, and if you look at it, it could be strange that the wind comes from the land to the sea. It should be the other way, and Renoir insists on the wind with the tree on the left. I mean, this tree is like a character, a model, someone who is posing for him as a model, who is blending with the wind. And it makes sense to insist on this wind on the top of the hill. Renoir climbed on the hill to have this view. There's no boats, no buses, nothing except nature, the wind and the sea. It can remind this parasol, this tree, the trip that Renoir made to see Cézanne in Marseille some months before. He was very impressed by Cézanne, and he was very interested by the Côte d'Azur. So after Guernsey, he went to Bordighera with Claude Monet, and they decided to have a new inspiration with the sun and the trees, and also palm trees was very fascinating for them, because it's like characters that can make more lively the painting, to have all these trees. Renoir wanted to find a way to sell his painting to a wider audience at the time, and this view was very exotic for Parisian people, for instance. There's nothing, it's quite very savage. I mean, there's no boats, no houses, nobody on the beach. We are all alone on an island. We are like primary people looking to a primary picture in the middle of nowhere. La Côte du Moulin Huet is a very interesting painting by Renoir. Indeed, it is the hills of Guernsey from Moulin Huet. It is a very strange painting indeed, because all the painting is focused on the right hill, very green, and then on the left you can see what Renoir wanted to let imagine, the rocks, and a little stain of blue means the sea. So it reminds some paintings that Renoir has seen has made indeed in Napoli, in Naples, in Italy, the view of the Bay of Salerne, which is now in Musée Malraux, in the city of Le Havre in Normandy. You have the same view with a little hill and a little view of the sea, and everything is focused on the color of the ground. And what is really lively, it is the ground here. It's not the sea, it's not the cloud, it's the vegetation. You have no trees, you have only the grass and the flowers, and you can imagine how sloppy it is. We are very high on the hill. It's very tiring to go there. Renoir was not alone, he was like a bourgeois. He was with his friend, the journalist Paul Lotte, and his mistress, Aline Charigot. So he used to work a lot, but we can be sure that he was not alone. And to climb on the hill was very tiring for everybody. Once Renoir was there, he made this painting, I think, and then that's it. Okay, I have the view, I have the hill, I have the sea. I will try to finish my painting, and that's it. He was maybe interested by the contrast between the hill and the sea, but it's a general view of Guernsey without any activity, any boat, there's no house, no building, no buses, nothing. Once Renoir made that, he said, okay, I'm tired, I will focus on the buses, on the beach, because he was very interested by the figures. And he said, I'm a painter of portraits. And his stay in Guernsey means for him a new way to paint, because he could combine buses, figures and landscape.
When Renoir returned to his studio in Paris, applying finishing touches to a number of the canvases he had created, he also returned with a new idea, a fresh manner of working which informed the next phase of his career. The success, or perhaps recognition that he sought, didn't come immediately. He only sold 5 of the 15 paintings he produced in Guernsey to his and Monet's Parisian dealer, Paul Durand-Ruel. Today, however, Guernsey Renoirs feature in the collections of famous museums in New York, Boston, London, Paris, Zurich and Copenhagen, amongst others, and a number of them are considered to be masterpieces. Of the 5 paintings still held in private hands, Rochers de Guernsey avec Personnage, Plage à Guernsey, has been acquired by a group of passionate art collectors, syndicated by Art for Guernsey, and is set to return to the island for the first time since 1883. Of a real artistic and heritage significance for Guernsey, the artwork will be a catalyst for Art for Guernsey's ambitious cultural diplomacy strategy, helping to inspire the local community, supporting the tourism industry, and playing a key curriculum role within the local schools. In 1883, Renoir helped present Guernsey to his contemporaries in a special light, and the island provided him with new inspiration for his career, in particular the further integration of nude portraits in landscapes. He can, perhaps, be considered as one of the island's earliest cultural diplomats.